Good afternoon, everyone. I hope my voice is audible. So, in today's session, we will be looking upon the automation capabilities of Zoho Books and how you can automate your accounting process by using Zoho Books. So, in today's session, the agenda would be we'll be giving a brief introduction about what automation is, and then what are all the automation that you can expect in a financial operation to give you out an idea, and what are all the automation options that is available in Zoho Books. We have 3 types of options that is available in Zoho Books, and since it is an automation, so we also need a option to debug what is the issue, or if there is any if the automation has worked or not. So we have to check that, right? So we have the debugging tools for the automation in Zoho Books, and then we will wind up the session with a recap and a question and answer. So let's start the session. So first is, what is automation? Basically, whenever there is a manual work that is involved, and if there is a repeated task which has to be done manually, there comes the use case where that process has to be automated. So let's say you have a manufacturing company, and you have a set process that is followed by the laborers, where a particular process is being happening manually, which is a repeated process. So you can purchase a robot and then you can automate it. In simpler way, all the manual task which is repeated can be automated. So now in wider perspective, as an automation, the definition is that whatever that is done manually has to be automated. Now if we go for financial operations, what are all the automations in financial operations? Let's say in business you have to follow up with your customers for getting the payments. You have to follow up with your accounts team to ensure that they are paying out the vendors on right time. So you can also remind your customers automatically based on the due date of the invoice. So these are all some of the use cases where automation is very much crucial in the financial operation, so that you can focus on your growth of your business rather than having the small manual task being controlled and being checked upon. So let's explore the automation capabilities that you can configure within Zoho Books. So first is the predefined automation, where we have the option to automate your payment reminders to your customers. So in the settings, we have this reminders and notifications, in which you will find the reminders option, where you can have manual reminders which you can send manually to your customers, and we have the automated reminders. As we are checking the automation features now, so we are looking into automated reminders. So one is the reminders of your invoices based on expected payment date. Whenever any invoice is created, you will have the option to set a expected payment date for that particular invoice. And based on this expected payment date, you can trigger a payment reminder to your customers, and the email will be sent to your customer, and based on that the payments will be made. Now based on expected payment date, and then there is a due date will be there for a invoice. So reminders based on due date can be configured, and you can configure multiple reminders as well. So as you see here, you have reminder 1, which is reminder to you, where it reminds you 1 day before the due date, and on the day of due date it will remind you, and 1 day after the due date the reminder will be triggered. So in this way, automatically the reminders will be triggered. It can be triggered to you yourself, or it can be triggered to your customers, and it can be triggered to your customer, as well as it can copy yourself. And this will be the content. You can also make changes to the content if required, and based on the due date that you select, the automated reminders will be triggered to your customers. Talking of to the customer's perspective, we also have to ensure that the payments should also be maintained. That is, the payouts from your organization to your vendors should also be timely basis. So for that, we have the reminders for bills as well. So for bills, based on the expected payment date by your vendor and based on the due date of the bill, we can trigger the payment reminders automatically from within Zoho Books. And the next thing, that is when we are looking into the automated reminders, it doesn't have any rule. That is, if the due date has arrived for the invoice, or if the expected payment date has arrived for the invoice or bill, the reminder email will be triggered. Apart from this, if you have any other criterias based on which the action has to be performed. So for that, we have the workflow rule and its automation features. So let's explore the workflow rule and the automation features in Zoho Books. First, we have email alerts. So if we go into the settings under the automation tab, you will find the option workflow actions. And in workflow actions, you can configure all this type of workflow actions. We will see to it one by one. So first is we have email alert. So we can select the new email alert and we can give a name. So reminder email as an example. And we can configure which module to which this email alert has to be triggered. So it can be retainer invoice, it can be quotes, it can be invoice, all the purchases and sales module and the time tracking module, contacts and based on your bank transactions and the accountant module, and also like task and other, that is the item based modules can be configured. Based on the actions that you do in these modules, the email alert can be triggered automatically. So once this is set, once the email alert is set, let's say I have a example here, that is if there is a sales order that has crossed more than 50,000, that's a big value sale for any business, right? So for that, we will be triggering an email alert which will send an congratulation emails to the sales team, so that for the successful email, for the successful confirmation of a sales order which is more than 50,000. So based on this, whenever there is a workflow rule that is configured, where in that rule, if I open the email alert rule, so if the total, that is the workflow rule has two types, that is event based, and then there is actions when it is created, edited or edited, deleted, all the actions that you do in every sales orders. And based on the workflow execution condition, the criteria will be checked. And here the criteria is total more than 50,000. And the immediate action is your sales order email alert that is already configured. And you can configure multiple actions for the same condition, and you can also associate time-based action. We will look into it one by one. So now based on this particular email alert workflow and workflow action, whenever any sales order that is created more than 50K, the email alert will be sent to the particular salesperson. Now, after email alert, apart from email alert, we also have something called as in-app notification. That is whenever any sales order is more than 1 lakh, you have to congratulate the salesperson. And as an example, so whenever the sales order is created more than 1 lakh, you will have the option that is congrats, you have closed the valuable deal for the business, for our business, which is deal more than 10 lakh. So based on this, an in-app notification will be triggered to that user. The user can be based on role, or it can be based on the user specifically for that particular particularly for that in-app notification. Now, whenever we are configuring a workflow rule, any new workflow rule that we take will have a workflow name. So we can configure it as in-app notification, let's say for an example. And then module is quote. Next, we have the option to select workflow type, which can be event based or date based. Event based, as we discussed, that is created or edited based on the actions that we perform. Apart from this, date based as in there are date fields that is available in each transaction. Let's say quote date, expiry date, invoice date, and apart from that, you can have any other custom field which is of date format. And based on that date, and based on the execution time that you select on a particular day, either it is 2 p.m. or it will be a 24 hours time. So if it is 3 p.m. means you can configure it as 3 p.m. and execution cycle, whether it is once or daily or weekly, based on this. And whenever this particular condition reaches, that is date of execution 1 day before or after the quote date, whenever this particular date arrives, based on the criteria that you select, let's say if total is equal to 5,000, 10,000, then the immediate action that you need to perform will be triggered. Apart from this, once the immediate action is performed, there can also be another timer that can be set in that workflow. Based on that, like let's say once the first email alert is triggered on today at 3 p.m., then one day after the rule trigger date, another workflow action has to be performed. So for that, we have the time-based action, and based on this time-based action, the workflow will be continuously working. So we have covered the in-app notification and email alert. And apart from this, we have the option to, that is email alert, in-app notification are just the conventional methods. And going with the technologies, we have instantaneous notifications, which is being sent to through WhatsApp. So if you have integrated WhatsApp with your business WhatsApp business account with Zoho Books, then you can also configure WhatsApp alert with Zoho Books, and based on the rule that you configure, the WhatsApp alert will be sent to the contacts that you have. These are all to notify other users, your customers, and the stakeholders related to any transactions. Let's say there is an example where any business will have both online and offline type of businesses, where online business will have a different terms of conditions, and offline business will have a different terms of conditions. In those cases, how can we ensure that the terms and conditions are dynamically changed based on the type or the channel of sales that you perform? So for that, we have a workflow action called as field update. So whenever a quote is created, and whenever any invoice is created, so we have the option to update the terms and conditions. So if it is a terms and conditions related to your online sales or offline sales, it can be updated here, and this value, that is the terms and condition that you type in here, based on the custom rule, that is the workflow rule that you configure based on the custom field as a condition, that gets updated. That is whenever the custom field, whether it is online or offline, if it is online, then the field update will be triggering the field, and that is the terms and conditions for online, and if it is offline, the field update will become offline terms and conditions. So based on this, we can update the terms and conditions and then update our customers, that is send the invoices or any quotes to our customers. Now all these are predefined automation functionalities that Zoho Books offers. Apart from this, if you want to have any customized automation, for that we have the automation based on scripts. That is, in Zoho, we have a platform called Zoho Deluge, and based on Zoho Deluge, you can configure a script, and based on that script, your automated action will be performed. So let's see one by one script-based automation functionalities that Zoho Books offers. So first we have the custom buttons. So as a custom button, if you see, whenever you are creating a quotation, you can convert one quotation to one invoice. But let's say you have multiple quotations, and multiple quotations has to be converted to a single sales order or single invoice. So that conversion might not be feasible, right? So for that, we have a custom button, convert to sales order, which can be configured by going to settings, quotes, and in quotes, we have the custom buttons. In custom buttons, you can configure the script that is related to conversion of multiple sales orders or multiple quotes to one sales order, and based on this scripting, the action will be performed, and there is no condition, as and when you are selecting it, and when you click this button, when you proceed to it, it gets created if there is no errors related to the transaction. So we have got the sales order number and the status has been created for this particular quotation. Now if we open the sales order, we will have the option to we will be able to view that sales order as well, which is created in draft, which will have all the items associated from the quote. Now this particular custom button will be another manual work where you are clicking that button. What if you can write a script and automate that script to happen? That is also possible. That is, when we go to settings under the workflow actions, we have something called as custom functions. So let's say creation of quote to a sales order is one use case, and you have let's say whenever we are creating an invoice, we will have multiple fields, and unit rate will be different, and then the rate that you give will be different, and there might be calculation that is involved. Let's say apart from quantity into rate, you might have number of days into the quantity into the rate. So those type of custom calculations cannot happen with the custom button, right? Every time you need to click it, and that will take time. So to avoid the time consumption of clicking a button, we have this custom function which can be written for calculating your item table level calculations, whatever it can be, and based on the unit rate and then the number of days and then the quantity, the rate gets updated. And we can also configure a workflow rule based on which whenever an invoice is created, the item table level information will be fetched and the calculation will happen, and the total will be updated as per the calculation that we need. So these type of custom calculations can happen based on the workflow rule and the custom function that is triggered. So there is an action that is involved in the second scenario that we discussed. That is, whenever we are creating an invoice, that is the workflow action is created. What if there is no scenario or no criteria that is involved or no action that is involved, but you have to automate some information which doesn't follow any criteria or any manual work? For that, we have something called as schedulers. Let's say you need to send invoice details, outstanding invoice details to your customers as a list. So we have customers, and once you open any customer, you'll have the statement. You can email the statement whenever it is required. And while sending an email, you can also include the outstanding invoices list. However, what if you have multiple customers for whom you need to send? It is not practically possible to send it individually or send it as a bulk manually, right? So for that, we have the scheduler option, and using schedules, you can configure the option to send email to your customers if there are any outstanding payables, outstanding receivables from the customer, and that gets posted or that gets emailed to your customer as a table, using which they can view, and they can also proceed to make payment to you, and you can ensure that your business is managed efficiently and you can focus on growth of your business. So far we are discussing about the transaction updation and then notifying your customers and all these things that is related to any transaction. Let's say you need to have a link between your sales order and a purchase order. So we have a sales order, and for which you have created a purchase order as well. That is, you have converted this sales order to a purchase order. But then you will not have anywhere where you can track the sales order and purchase order, right? So to track that information where one transaction is linked to other transaction, and if you are having any custom module in Zoho Books, if that custom module information has to be tracked for an invoice. So for these related information is something can be configured in Zoho Books called as related list. So I have configured a related list in sales order, which will display the associated purchase orders in Zoho Books that is associated to a particular sales order. So based on this script, whenever you are creating a sales order and whenever there is a purchase order that is created from this sales order, the associated purchase order will be displayed, and you can also configure a table in such manner that here we have the purchase order number, vendor name and status and the amount. Apart from this, if you need any other additional information, like if the purchase order has been converted to bill, that status, and then if there is any other module for which you need to configure within the sales order, that is also possible using the related list. Now we have covered the script-based automation that you can that you can configure within Zoho Books, and to notify your customers, to notify yourself, to notify the stakeholders related to the transactions, to congratulate them and grow your business. But what if there is a different application that you have for your business, a website or a different application, and you need to update the data to your application from Zoho Books, and from your application to Zoho Books, it is also possible. That is, Zoho Books uses REST APIs, and using APIs, you can configure Zoho Books webhooks as well. And like, say for example, you need to, whenever any invoice is created in Zoho Books, you need to pass down that information to your application or your server. We have the outgoing webhooks using which you can configure a workflow, associate the webhooks, and based on the parameters, let me show you the webhooks that can be configured in Zoho Books. So in the settings, under the workflow actions, the outgoing webhooks can be configured, and the new webhook will have the module, let's say invoice, and the URL and its parameters will be configured based on your application, and the body or the data that has to be passed from Zoho Books to your system can be configured here. And based on the workflow rule that we are associating this webhook to, it will be updating your system with the data that you are creating within Zoho Books. And what if the reverse happens? So if you are creating an invoice in your system and that has to flow inside Zoho Books, that is also possible. That is, we have the incoming webhooks under the developer and data section. We will have the incoming webhooks option. Using the incoming webhook, you can use the URL of Zoho Books that Zoho Books offers for the triggering of the webhook to your system, and using that URL, based on the script that you configure in this section using the deluge function, all the data inside Zoho Books will be created as and when you are creating from your system. And these are all script-based webhooks that is triggered from Zoho Books to your system to Zoho Books. Apart from this, if you are having a retail business where you are shipping your goods to your customers, and for which you need to get a notification inside Zoho Books whenever the shipment is completed. So for that, we have the signals feature. So whenever you are configuring a signals in Zoho Books, that triggers a notification to you in Zoho Books based on the webhook that is triggered by your shipment service provider. And based on this, the trigger type can be function or an API. So based on this function, you will get a notification stating that the shipment has been delivered, the shipment has been returned, whatever the shipment status that is available in your that is the shipment cart provider basically. So now with this, the script based automation with the third party application is concluded, and whatever the automation that we configure within the system, we also have to have a track of whatever the automation that is getting triggered, right? So for that, we have the workflow logs. Workflow logs will help you out in the settings. Can be navigated by going to the settings and then workflow logs, where you can check if the email alert has been triggered, what is the status of the trigger, if it is success or not, and then the webhook, whether it is triggered or not, and then the custom function, whether it has been triggered, and if it is a failure, you can open that and check what is the error that is faced. You can make sure that that error is configured or that error is rectified in the custom function script, and then you can run it again, like execute it again. And the schedules, whenever the schedule is executed, based on that scheduler, this log will happen, and you can see the log message as well once you open it. Once it is emailed successfully, you will get the email notification as well. And custom buttons, whenever you are clicking a custom button, as we clicked right now, and it is success. So when we check it, it will show the whatever the message that we received as a sales order has been created and what is the value of the sales order. Everything will be configured in the specific field. So apart from this workflow logs, these workflow logs will be shown to you only if the workflow is getting triggered. So let's say if workflow is not triggered at all, how do you identify it? So for that, we have brought in this reports for automation. So under the automation in the reports, we have the scheduled date-based workflow. So once you open that, if there is any date-based workflow that is configured, you will have the option to check it, and you can ensure that whether this workflow has been executed or not. So right now I have a workflow execution logs, which will be there. So in workflow execution logs, whether it is skipped or whether it is executed, everything will be displayed over there. If it is skipped, we can check the details of it, why it is skipped. The first criteria, that is if it is crossing 1 lakh, it has to be triggered. Here the criteria doesn't match, hence the problem occurred, that is the workflow did not trigger. And the same way you can check for any other workflow rule that you are configuring in Zoho Books. So in this way you can automate every operation of your finances in Zoho Books, and you can also track whether the automation has been properly running in the system, and you can take the necessary action, and this will ensure that your business is running efficiently, and you will have a productive way ahead by using Zoho Books. So a quick recap of this session. So we initially introduced about the automation, and we covered the automation in the financial operations, and then we checked upon what are all the automation functionalities that you can configure in Zoho Books, and then we have the debugging tools which you can configure and which you can refer in the Zoho Books, and how to go about it. So we are having whatever the automation functionalities that we configure in Zoho Books, it ensures that you stay in the ecosystem of Zoho Books, and then you ensure that every process is streamlined and automated. So in that note, we would like to introduce the new product, which is the Zoho Payments, which we have introduced recently. This will ensure that you can streamline your AR, that is the accounts receivable process also, and stay within the Zoho ecosystem. So Zoho Payments is a payment gateway where you can you can configure and integrate it with all the Zoho applications, which is listed here, and based on this integration, you can receive you receive the payments from your customers, and you can also and then that particular payment will also get updated as a payment to an invoice, to any transaction that you have created in Zoho Books. So any Zoho application that is configured with Zoho Payments, the relevant reports and your payments can be accepted, and it can be verified within Zoho Books. And by jumping into Zoho Payments as a payment gateway, we have no hidden cost, and you can directly configure. I mean your customers can pay you using UPI, they can pay you using cards, or they can pay you using corporate cards, and these are all the charges that is applicable. Along with that, additionally an 18% GST will be applied to all the transactions. So if you are interested in receiving payments, and if you are interested in configuring Zoho Payments, you can reach out to the toll-free number that is mentioned here, or you can email to Zoho Payments team to support@zohopayments.com. So the team will be helping you out in onboarding as a Zoho Payments and onboarding as a Zoho Payments customer, and you can streamline your receivable part. So that's it with the automation queries. So if you have any queries within yourself, so you can ask us using the questions questions option. So we are happy to answer you. So we have a question where is there any way where I can get a reminder to my email before any annual maintenance contract get expired every time? Yes, this is possible. So you can configure the date-based workflow and email alert, where in the invoice you can configure the AMC as a AMC date as a custom field, and whenever the next AMC arrives, you can configure the workflow rule in such a way that the one day before the AMC date, the email alert will be triggered, and the email alert will be configured in such a way that it notifies you or the specific email that you want to notify, and based on this, the transactions will be triggered. That is, the email alert will be triggered. Yeah, the next question is we have a custom button or functions only work on saved record in Zoho Books. Yes, so whenever the workflow rule that you are configuring will be triggered based on created or edited based on the action that you perform. So once you save the invoice or save any transaction, the custom function will be triggered. Custom button, as it is a manual trigger, once the transaction is created or once the record is created from the list page or from the record page, you can trigger that using the custom button. can we create workflow for inputter and authorizer for accounting transactions like bills and invoices. So it is not required as a workflow here. So whenever you are going to a transaction, that is transaction approval configuration, if you go to a bills and if you are configuring simple approval or multi-level approval, whenever you are selecting any email, you will have the option to send an email and in-app notification when the submitter submits for approval. So when the inputter, that is the person who is creating the transaction, is creating, you can send an email notification to the option, that is to the approver, that it has been submitted for approval. Once it is submitted, once it is approved, the submitter will again get a notification that it has been approved or rejected. So this can be configured by using the default approval flow itself. Yeah. So I hope you are using, for this question, I hope you are using the default send email functionality, whereas where in this particular use case, default, instead of default send email, you can configure email alert, so that once the invoice is created, the email alert will be triggered to your customers. So in this way, you can ensure that the manual intervention is stopped. So as you are integrating other software to Zoho Books, if that software also has APIs, you can trigger the APIs, and the script has to be configured at your end with your developers, and by integrating and Zoho Books has the APIs, so you can just Google as Zoho Books APIs, you can get the API documentation, and your tech team will have the API documentation and API configuration knowledge at your end. So based on this, you can make the integration possible, and like your system can talk with Zoho Books. Yeah, I understand that you need to skip automatic reminder or the automatic action, the automation for a specific customer or invoice. Yes, it is possible. However, it is not, though it is not possible for automatic reminder, it is possible for automated action, the workflow actions on workflow rule. You can have a checkbox custom field, whether the custom field is enabled, that the action will be triggered. So you can configure the criteria in the workflow rule, whether if the criteria has the checkbox is true, then the workflow will be triggered. If it is false, that is if that checkbox is not ticked, then the workflow will not be triggered. So custom field can be created with checkbox as a data type. That will ease this particular process. So yes, you can learn the scripting. That is, as I mentioned, Zoho has the in-house low-code platform, Zoho Deluge. Yeah, so the default reminder email will not have the statement and outstanding invoices. Reminder email will be for a specific invoice. However, as we discussed about the scheduler, with the help of scheduler, you can send out the ledger statement, that is the customer statement, and the outstanding invoice list via email to your customers, and it will have all this information. It can have all this information. Yeah, so if you are telling the software subscription about Zoho Books, you will already be receiving the subscription reminders. That is, you will have, whenever you log in, you will get that your subscription is about to expire, and you will also receive email to your registered email address. Apart from this, if you are having any other purchase bills, you can configure a date, expiration date for that particular subscription, and you can configure email alert to trigger an email whenever the subscription is getting expired. So based on using this, you can get it notified using an email. Yeah. So we have answered in the chat box and in the questions tab for maximum of the questions. So apart from this, if you have to reach out to us, you can reach out to us through our toll-free number, and you can also write to us at support.india@zohobooks.com. We provide support in English, Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Kannada, Marathi, Gujarati, and Bangla. So you can reach out to our regional language supports, and then you can get your queries sorted. Thank you very much for your time, everyone, and have a nice day.